You're listening to KLLGLP 97.9 Willits, California, Willits Hometown Radio. Thanks for tuning in, and welcome to the Gnostic Connection. I'm your host and metaphysical detective, Damien Sebuhian. The Gnostic Connection is dedicated to exploring the esoteric behind the exoteric in an attempt to excavate the golden light of truth. As a metaphysical detective, my role for each show is to investigate a specific topic of interest, uncover its hidden wisdom, and share with you, the listener, my findings. Feel free to accept, reject, or modify my findings as you see fit. For today's episode, I will be making the Gnostic Connection with Dispatches from Coratopia. In Dispatches from Coratopia, Mythic Reflections on Sovereignty and Ascension, you will hear from my alter ego, the Scribe of Coratopia, about the hidden mechanics of the world we call Third Density Earth, explored through speculation, symbolic imagination, and mythic storytelling. Addressed to the fictional Coratopia Collective of Ascension-Aeons, these dispatches use a Gnostic lens to examine how human sovereignty has been gradually outsourced, fragmented, and co-opted by pervasively archontic mechanisms. Dispatches from Coratopia asks the vital question: how can humanity transform from a hierarchical, power-centric structure that benefits the few at the expense of the many to a decentralized web of interconnected hearts where the spiritual sovereignty of every sentient being is valued and rigorously maintained by and for the highest good of the all? The dispatches acknowledge that during the space between now and ascension lies the shadow. As described in the Gospel of Thomas, what is hidden in shadow must be brought forth, for what is revealed will unite us, but what is not brought forth from the shadow will delay and divide us for as long as it remains hidden. Dispatches from Coratopia invites listeners to reflect, discern, and reclaim personal sovereignty as humanity imagines its way toward a more heart-aware now. Metaphysical Detective Report number 4721G presented to the Coratopia Collective. The Gateway Process, when the CIA went full Wookiee. Prepared by Damien Sebuhian, Metaphysical Detective for the Coratopia Collective. Classification: too weird to classify. Good evening, Coratopia. Did you know that the CIA spent taxpayer money in the 1980s to figure out if people could astral project? And they succeeded? Between 1978 and 1984, the CIA's Army Intelligence and Security Command commissioned a classified analysis of something called the Gateway Process. This wasn't your typical Black Ops program. No poison umbrellas or shoe phones here. No, this was far stranger. The Gateway Process, developed at the Monroe Institute by consciousness researcher Robert Monroe, was designed to do something that sounds like science fiction: alter human consciousness to allow it to escape the confines of space and time itself. Let me say that again. The CIA wanted to figure out how to get human consciousness to leave the building entirely. The method? A series of auto techniques using binaural beats, different sound frequencies played in each ear, to synchronize the brain's hemispheres and induce altered states of consciousness. The technical term is hemi-sync, and the goal was to achieve what Monroe called focus levels, numbered states of consciousness ranging from normal waking awareness all the way up to states where you're supposedly interacting with non-physical intelligence. The man tasked with analyzing this program for the Army was Colonel Wayne McDonnell, and the report he produced in June 1983 is nothing short of staggering. McDowell didn't just say, "Yeah, this meditation stuff might help soldiers relax." No, he went full metaphysics. We're talking holographic universe theory, quantum mechanics, consciousness existing outside the brain, and yes, encounters with non-human entities in other dimensions. The report was classified, of course. Page 25 was mysteriously missing for decades. When it finally surfaced in 2017 through a FOIA request, researchers discovered it contained the most reality-bending conclusions of all. Now, let's talk about the alligators. According to classified documents and Monroe's own accounts, Gateway process participants, including remote viewers and astral travelers, reported encounters with non-physical entities during their out-of-body experiences. Some of those entities were described as helpful, others as neutral observers, but one particular group earned a rare ominous code name from the intelligence community: the alligators. The alligators were described as low-level predatory entities existing in what Monroe called Locale 2, the astral plane closest to our physical reality. Think of them as energetic parasites, or, to use Monroe's own terminology, entities that feed on human emotional energy, particularly fear and negative emotions. Monroe described them as territorial, primitive, and often hostile to human consciousness when encountered in out-of-body states. Monroe developed specific techniques to avoid or bypass these entities during astral travel. The Gateway training included protocols for protection, essentially mental disciplines and energetic boundaries to prevent interference from these alligators. The fact that the CIA took these encounters seriously enough to develop operational protocols tells you something profound. They believed these things were real. Not real as in mass hallucination or archetypal projection, but real as in actual non-physical entities that posed genuine concerns to consciousness explorers. Now let's talk about what McDonald's report concluded about the nature of reality itself. McDonald's analysis draws heavily on the work of physicists like David Bohm and Carl Prembrum, who proposed that the universe operates as a hologram. In a hologram, every piece contains information about the whole. McDonald argued that our physical reality is a holographic projection emerging from deeper non-physical patterns of energy and information. Here's the key passage from the report, and I'm paraphrasing because government prose is about as exciting as a DMV waiting room. The universe is not fundamentally made of matter and energy in space and time. Instead, it's made of frequencies. Our brains are essentially frequency decoders, converting these wave patterns into the appearance of solid reality. Consciousness, McDonald argued, is not produced by the brain, but exists as a field phenomenon outside the boundaries of physical space-time. In other words, your brain is a radio, not a broadcast. And if reality is holographic and electromagnetic, that means a few brain-melting things. 1. Time is an illusion. Past, present, and future exist simultaneously in the eternal now. 2. Physical matter is frozen light. What we experience as solid is actually patterns of frequency slowed down enough to appear stable. 3. Consciousness can access information non-locally. Remote viewing, precognition, and telepathy aren't paranormal. They're natural functions of consciousness operating outside the holographic projection. McDonald concluded that with proper training, like the Gateway process, humans could learn to move their consciousness outside the physical hologram entirely, accessing what he called the absolute, the unified field of all consciousness outside time and space. The CIA stamped this approved for release in 2003, by the way, just casually dropped this metaphysical bomb into the public domain and then went back to doing whatever else the CIA does on Tuesdays. Now here's where my metaphysical detective instincts start tingling. If you're familiar with Gnostic Christianity, the mystical, heretical branch that got thoroughly stomped by Orthodox Christianity around the 4th century, you'll recognize the alligators immediately. The Gnostics called them the archons, non-physical parasitic entities that feed on human consciousness and work to keep humanity trapped in ignorance of our true spiritual nature. The Gnostics described our material reality as a prison created by a false god called the Demiurge, a low-level entity who fashioned the physical world as a kind of farm for human souls. The archons serve as the Demiurge's enforcers, keeping us trapped in cycles of fear, materialism, and spiritual amnesia. Sound familiar? The Gateway process findings, particularly the encounters with predatory entities and the revelation that physical reality is a holographic projection, map almost perfectly onto Gnostic cosmology. The alligators are archons, the holographic matrix is the Demiurge's prison, and the Gateway techniques, they're modern versions of Gnostic meditation practices designed to achieve gnosis, direct knowledge of our true nature beyond the illusion. But let's bring this into the 21st century, because what Gnostics called the material prison and what the CIA discovered as the holographic matrix, contemporary researchers call something else, a simulation. Thomas Campbell, a physicist who actually worked at the Monroe Institute alongside the CIA's Gateway researchers, wrote a massive trilogy called My Big Toe, Theory of Everything, in which he argues that our reality is a virtual reality simulation generator by a larger consciousness system. Campbell doesn't speak metaphorically. He means we're literally in something akin to a massive multiplayer online game with consciousness as the player and physical reality as the rendered environment. Rizwan Virk, in his book The Simulation Hypothesis, approaches the same conclusion from a different angle. Given the exponential advancement of computing and virtual reality technology, it's statistically probable that we're living in an ancestor simulation run by a post-human civilization. Kirk's work reads like science fiction, but he backs it up with information theory, quantum mechanics, and game design principles. Here's the connection. Whether you call it the archontic prison, the holographic matrix, or the simulation, we're talking about the same phenomenon, a constructed reality that appears physical but is fundamentally informational, a system inhabited by our consciousness which is non-local and exists beyond the system itself. And entities, archons, alligators, AI subroutines, or whatever you want to call them, that operate within the system to maintain its stability. The gateway process, then, is a cheat code, a way to hack the simulation from within, to move your consciousness outside the rendering engine and access the source code. And the CIA figured this out 40 years ago. Now, let's talk about something that dropped just recently, the Telepathy Tapes podcast, which has been making waves in consciousness research circles. For those unfamiliar, the Telepathy Tapes investigates a group of non-speaking autistic individuals who demonstrate profound telepathic abilities. We're not talking about vague intuitions or lucky guesses. We're talking about consistent, verifiable transmission of complex information between minds with no physical communication. Words, images, numbers, emotions, all transferred directly from consciousness to consciousness. What's striking is how these individuals describe their experience of reality. They consistently report 1. Awareness of a unified consciousness field that connects all beings. 2. Perception that physical reality is secondary to a deeper non-physical dimension of existence. 3. Communication with non-physical entities and intelligences beyond the physical plane. 4. Experience of time as non-linear, with access to past and future information. Sound familiar? Because that's exactly what Gateway Process participants reported after achieving high focus levels. It's what Robert Monroe described in his out-of-body explorations. It's what mystics and shamans have been saying for millennia. But here's what makes the telepathy tapes so significant. These aren't trained remote viewers or consciousness explorers. These are individuals, many of them children, whose neurological wiring is different enough that they're apparently less constrained by the brain's normal filtering mechanisms. They're accessing the same non-local consciousness field that gateway techniques were designed to reach, but they're doing it naturally without training. In other words, the telepathy demonstrated in these cases provides independent verification of the gateway process findings. If consciousness is indeed non-local and exists outside the brain, if reality is holographic and informational, then telepathy isn't paranormal. It's normal. It's what consciousness does when it's not locked inside the illusion of separate physical bodies. And if these individuals can access this unified field, interact with non-physical intelligence, and perceive reality outside the constraints of space-time, then so can we all. The gateway process was the CIA's attempt to weaponize and systematize what these extraordinary individuals do naturally. Both reveal the same truth. The reality we experience through our five senses is a thin slice of a much larger, non-physical dimension of existence that we all have access to. Which brings me to the point of this report, Coratopia. The CIA, and by extension, the broader intelligence community, has been sitting on this information for over 40 years. They know that consciousness is non-local. They know that physical reality is holographic. They know that non-physical entities exist in dimensions adjacent to our own. They've trained operatives to investigate these realms. They've developed protocols for astral projection, remote viewing, and consciousness exploration that work. And they've kept it classified. I understand operational security. I understand that there are legitimate concerns about weaponization, about mass panic, about cultural disruption, but we've reached a point where the evidence is overwhelming, where independent researchers are converging on the same conclusions, where ordinary people are having spontaneous experiences that confirm these findings. Schrodinger's cat is not just in and out of the box at the same time. It's given interviews and published a memoir. It's time for the government to stop treating consciousness research like it's more dangerous than nuclear weapons. It's time for full disclosure of what intelligence agencies know about the astral realms, about non-physical entities, about the holographic nature of reality. Why? Because we need an open dialogue about how to navigate the broader reality that surrounds us and exists within us. If predatory entities like the alligators exist in the astral plane, shouldn't the public have access to the protection techniques that gateway trainers developed? If consciousness can leave the body and access non-local information, shouldn't we be teaching these skills in schools instead of hoarding them in classified programs? If reality itself is a holographic projection that we can learn to navigate and even influence, doesn't humanity deserve to know? The implications aren't just philosophical, they're practical. Understanding the nature of consciousness could revolutionize everything from mental health treatment to conflict resolution to how we understand death and dying. The Gateway findings suggest that consciousness survives physical death, that we are far more than our bodies, that we exist in a larger context of meaning and purpose that transcends material existence. So here's my proclamation on behalf of Coratopia and every seeker of truth who's tired of being treated like a child too fragile to handle reality. Release the full Gateway archives, declassify the astral navigation protocols, share the consciousness research, give us the tools, trust us with the truth, because, ready or not, conscious or not, we're all navigating the Matrix. We might as well do it with the lights on. As the immortal Terence McKenna once said, the cost of sanity in this society is a certain level of alienation. But perhaps the cost of continued ignorance is something far higher, the loss of our full potential as multidimensional beings capable of so much more than we've been told is possible. And on that note, I'll leave you with this. If the CIA can confirm that reality is a hologram and that we're sharing it with interdimensional alligators, I think it's only fair they also confirm whether birds are real. I'm just saying, have you ever seen baby pigeons? Exactly. Stay curious, Coratopia, stay skeptical, and stay conscious. End of report. Damien Sebuhian, metaphysical detective, investigating realities since the last one stopped making sense.
If you spend your life overanalyzing every encounter, you will always see the tree, but never the forest. Shannon L. Alder the brain is not the source of consciousness, but rather a processor of consciousness and information in the form of frequency and electricity. The auric mind and what people call the soul operate outside the body-brain, anchored in the visible light range of matter. Mainstream science has long known that thoughts and emotions are represented as frequencies, waves which relate to the nature of the thought and emotion. Now we can see the origin of right, left, and whole brain people. If the auric mind is more open, it will deliver information, thought, perception, to the brain that matches the frequencies of the right hemisphere. The closed-minded will communicate frequencies that match the left hemisphere and be routed through that side. The predator class, otherwise known as the archons, seeks to influence this dynamic through the manipulation of how the brain processes information. If we override that manipulation, and we can't, it is not the brain that makes the hemisphere choice. It's the auric mind, and how its perceptual state, frequency state, syncs with the two hemispheres. Balanced minds will communicate powerfully to both sides, depending on the subject and situation, and their corpus callosum will be highly active communicating between the two. The auric mind is where our perceptions are formed, from a wide range of sources from human life experience and programming to, ideally, expanded awareness, way beyond the simulation. The predator's control process works incessantly to block access to expanded awareness, to isolate the auric mind in the perception of being only human, or a soul subordinate to its version of God. The human world consists of tiny frequency range that we know as matter, perceived with invisible light. and our sight sense is tuned to that frequency. We only see forms of matter with apparently empty space between. Matter is basically the human realm, and empty space is a whole other dimension that our eyes-see brain cannot decode unless we have psychic gifts with an expanded range of vision. Most people cannot see the auric field, while a minority can, if they have this sixth sense that can expand vision into what is known as the astral dimension. The astral can be termed the fourth dimension. If we take the world of matter to be the third dimension, these are not on top of each other like a chest of drawers. They share the same space while on different wavelengths, in the way analog TV and radio stations who channels, frequencies, share the same space without interference unless they are very close on the dial. Where is the astral? You are looking at it all day, every day. You know it is empty space, and it interacts with matter. For example, all paranormal activity and ghosts represent astral phenomena.
Our infinite state is one of awareness, a state of being aware. That's it. No body, no form, no mind, no soul. We are simply aware. But how aware? We could be infinitely aware in the limitless perception that some call God, or we can be only body aware and believe that we are Bob or Brenda who work in the office or the store. Both are states of awareness. They are just fantastically different. Low vibrational astral entities, beyond visible light, conspire to control humanity via their assets in the predator class operating in our realm of matter. They do so by dictating our level of awareness to trap us in low-frequency perception or density. The lower and slower the frequency, the denser the energy becomes until it enters the frequency of matter which our eyes, brain, can see. The higher the frequency, the more ethereal something appears, until it vibrates so quickly it disappears from human sight. Visible light is only a smear of the electromagnetic spectrum, which is itself estimated to be only 0.00005% of the energy in this one universe. We realize that conditioned humans can see bordering on nothing, while everything else in all infinity is beyond our ability to perceive with invisible light. This is vital to understand and transforms our perspective of human reality. Mysteries dissolve into aha revelations. Entities and craft cannot appear out of nowhere and disappear into nowhere from the perspective of five-sense material ignorance. That's impossible, surely. No, it isn't. We see the entity or craft when it appears out of the astral by entering the band of visible light, and when it leaves, it is no longer perceivable to the sight sense. Something appears and disappears, but only to the human observer. Thoughts and emotions are emitted as frequencies: fear, anxiety, hatred, depression, resentment, regret are long, low, slow frequencies. Joy, love, happiness, gratitude, and appreciation are short, fast, high frequencies. The sum total of our thoughts and emotions, including those located in the subconscious, together form what we call our perceptions. These dictate the frequency makeup of our auric mind electrometric field. The lower and denser the frequency, the less light, information, insight, God can break through the energetic density and influence perception. We form our perceptions from information, which could be anything from a personal experience to the 10 o'clock news. The cult created the education system and owns the mainstream and much of the alternative media on behalf of its astral demonic masters for the very purpose of controlling perception to control frequency. If the target population can be held in a low-frequency state of fear, anxiety, hatred, depression, resentment, and regret, their energetic field, awareness, will be dense and block high-frequency expanded awareness. Consciousness communicates into the reality of matter through the biological brain, or body, or biological computer. thoughts and emotions generated with their distinct frequencies dictate which side of the brain will be dominant. A sense of apartness and separation generates frequencies that match the left brain decoding system, while a sense of unity and connection will be frequency routed through the right. If you are in this world, left brain, but not of it, right brain, you will have the balance to be whole-brained. This is the ideal. You can operate with material detail, left brain intellect, and still perceive that all parts are connected, right brain awareness. You can function within the finite and be aware of the infinite. Bombardment of left brain information and perception through the cult-created education and media is designed to program a sense of apartness and separation to produce a left brain-dominated population. What follows is a human perception that everything is unconnected to everything else, when everything is connected by the energetic field that the sight sense perceives as empty space. The biological mind is a base perceptual program encoded to influence the brain to give people their sense of apartness, separation, and solidity. Physicality. Consciousness can override this program by changing the way the brain decodes reality. But for those who don't activate that expanded awareness, open mind, the biological program will dictate their perception and actions throughout a human life. They become, in effect, like a non-player character in a virtual reality game that is completely controlled by the game itself. The great majority of humans pass through life simply responding to these software impulses, while their consciousness is an excluded spectator. This is the left brain domination of education and media, and the chemical and frequency impact on the corpus callosum to block right brain perspective from influencing the left. The cloud of technologically generated electromagnetic information is doing this. A biological computer body consists of computer codes. The corpus callosum has specific codes that can be targeted by electromagnetic frequencies, and the technique is literally like hacking a computer. Information held on computer hard drives can be wiped by a powerful enough electromagnetic field, and the cloud is ever more obviously impacting on the brain and its information processing.
World in your head. The brain and body has another rather crucial function: to decode the very reality that we perceive as physicality. Human reality is a virtual reality simulation created by the astral demonic gods of ancient religions and modern-day Satanism. Conventional science is obsessed with the Big Bang, in which a single atom somehow exploded to create the universe, planets, stars, matter, and Bill's Auntie Ethel. The concept is so ludicrous that it's embarrassing, and so full of holes it would put a giant colander to shame. The simulation, or matrix, is a field of information akin to Wi-Fi or the cloud, and the brain-body decodes that information into the physicality that we think we are experiencing in the form of solid things. Perceived solidify is only decoded frequencies or wave information, in the same way that what you see on your computer screen is information from the Wi-Fi field decoded into a very different form. The simulation virtual reality field is the Wi-Fi, and the brain notch body is the computer. There is no physical reality without the body decoder. There is only the simulation field of information encoded as wave frequencies. There is no computer screen reality without the computer decoder. There is only a field of information encoded as frequency in the technologically generated electromagnetic field that we know as Wi-Fi. The body simulation decoding sequence works like this. The 5 senses connect with the simulation field of information encoded as frequency or vibration. Ears are an obvious example, as they pick up sound wave frequencies and communicate them to the brain as electrical signals. All 5 senses function in the same way. They transform frequency information into electrical information, which is then delivered to the brain. This, in turn, decodes the electrical into digital holographic information that we perceive as the world of human physicality. Different areas of the brain specialize in decoding different senses, and the brain fuses this information into the world that we think we see. We experience this as a reality external to us, when it is all happening in the decoding processes of the brain. What we see on the computer screen is inside the computer. The principle is identical in theme. The body biological computer is the conduit between incarnate consciousness and the simulation, and decodes a microscopic reality of matter compared with the infinity of life and possibility. According to an article in Wonderpedia, every second, 11 million sensations crackle along these brain pathways. The brain is confronted with an alarming array of images, sounds, and smells, which it rigorously filters down until it is left with a manageable list of around 40. Thus, 40 sensations per second make up what we perceive as reality. Our reality is constructed every second from 40 snapshots of information, sensations, from a potential 11 million. We remain consciously oblivious to the other 10, 9, 60, which are absorbed by the subconscious. Modern technology, AI, are mirroring and mimicking the way that we create the illusion of living in a solid world. A scene in the first Matrix movies captures the situation that humanity faces. The Matrix, or simulation, is all around us as a field of information that the body-brain is decoding into an illusory, physical world to entrap consciousness in a fake perception of reality. One mainstream headline about research at the Australian National University said, "Your entire life is an illusion. New test backs up theory that the world doesn't exist until we look at it. Take the example of a virtual reality game. What you experience through the headset or computer in each moment is the only place the game exists in that form. Elsewhere, it is computer codes, circuits, electricity, and electromagnetic fields. The game only exists as you perceive it when you are observing the part of the game, software program, that is being delivered to you by the headset, second by second. The internet only exists in the form that we see on the computer screen, when it is projected on the screen. Everywhere else, the internet is Wi-Fi and electrical circuitry." Scientists who have postulated that experienced reality only exists when we look at it have dubbed this the observer effect. It should really be called the decoder effect. The act of observation, attention, activates the decoding processes of the 5 senses and brain to transform waves or frequencies into electrical information, which the brain decodes into the digital holographic information that we experience as the outside world. It is not outside at all. It is inside the brain. What we make of that reality is decided by our perceptions of reality. We may all decode the same car passing by, but what we think of it will be different. I like it. I don't like it. The color is horrible. I love the color. Nobel physicist John Wheeler said that no phenomenon is a real phenomenon until it is an observed phenomenon, or, as I would say, a decoded phenomenon. Scientists have been perplexed by how frequency waves can also be particles at the same time. Surely, the left brain says in desperation for certainty, they must be one or the other. The wave is the Foundation's information and experiments have shown that it becomes a particle when the wave is observed. An Epoch Times article entitled "Your Mind Can Control Matter" described the result of one such experiment. Atomic particles were shown to also be waves. Whether they manifested as waves or as particles depended on whether someone was looking. Observation influenced the physical reality of the particles. In more technical language, observation collapsed the wave function. The simulation wave field of information transforms frequencies into what we perceive to be physical reality. I say the wave becomes a particle, but the wave still exists while taking a particle form. The wave is the Foundation information field of the simulation, and the particle is that information being decoded into physicality. When the wave is not being observed, it remains as just a wave of potential, waiting to be manifested by observation, attention. Does Wi-Fi information cease to exist when a computer decodes it into the form we see on the screen? No. Wi-Fi is the constant and is being decoded by multiple computers in the same moment. When not being decoded, Wi-Fi is only in its radiation state. I have long said that our physical reality is holographic. Rapidly advancing holographic technology, producing digital holograms, is mimicking our experienced reality, and to such an extent that experts in this field say it won't be long before you won't be able to tell the difference between technological holograms and our real world.
An excerpt from Carlos Castaneda's book, The Active Side of Infinite, if you're baffled by the revelations of the Epstein files. Consider this excerpt from Carlos Castaneda's book, The Active Side of Infinite, published in 1999. We have a predator that came from the depths of the cosmos and took over the rule of our lives. Human beings are its prisoners. The predator is our lord and master. It has rendered us docile, helpless. If we want to protest, it suppresses our protest. If we want to act independently, it demands that we don't do so. They took over because we are food for them, and they squeeze us mercilessly because we are their sustenance. Just as we rear chickens in chicken coops, the predators rear us in human coops, humaneros. Therefore, their food is always available to them. Think for a moment, and tell me how you would explain the contradiction between the intelligence of man, the engineer, and the stupidity of his systems of beliefs, or the stupidity of his contradictory behavior. Sorcerers believe that the predators have given us our systems of beliefs, our ideas of good and evil, our social mores. The predators are the ones who set up our hopes and expectations and dreams of success or failure. They have given us covetousness, greed, and cowardice. It is the predators who make us complacent, routinary, and egomaniacal. In order to keep us obedient, meek, and weak, the predators engage themselves in a stupendous maneuver. Stupendous, of course, from the point of view of a fighting strategist. A horrendous maneuver from the point of view of those who suffer it. They gave us their mind. The predators give us their mind, which becomes our mind. The predator's mind is baroque, contradictory, morose, and filled with the fear of being discovered any minute now. I know that, even though you have never suffered hunger, he went on, you have food anxiety, which is none other than the anxiety of the predator who fears that any moment now its maneuver is going to be uncovered, and its food is going to be denied. Through the mind, which after all is their mind, the predators inject into the lives of human beings whatever is convenient for them. The predators ensure in this manner a degree of security to act as a buffer against their fear. Sorcerers see infant human beings as strange, luminous balls of energy covered from the top to the bottom with a glowing coat, something like a plastic cover that is adjusted tightly over their cocoon of energy. He said that that glowing coat of awareness was what the predators consumed, and that when a human being reached adulthood, all that was left of that glowing coat of awareness was a narrow fringe that went from the ground to the top of the toes. That fringe permitted mankind to continue living, but only barely. This narrow fringe of awareness was the epicenter of self-reflection, where man was irremediably caught. By playing on our self-reflection, which is the only point of awareness left to us, the predators create flares of awareness that they proceed to consume in a ruthless, predatory fashion. They give us inane problems that force those flares of awareness to rise, and in this manner they keep us alive in order for them to be fed with the energetic flare of our pseudo-concerns. All we can do is discipline ourselves to the point where they will not touch us. Down in the depths of every human being, there is an ancestral, visceral knowledge about the predator's existence. The sorcerers of ancient Mexico were quite ill at ease with the idea of when it made its appearance on Earth. They reasoned that man must have been a complete being at one point, with stupendous insights and feats of awareness that are mythological legends nowadays. And then everything seems to disappear, and we have now a sedated man. What I'm saying is that what we have against us is not a simple predator. It is very smart and organized. It follows a methodical system to render us useless. Man, the magical being that he is destined to be, is no longer magical. He's an average piece of meat. There are no more dreams for man but the dreams of an animal who is being raised to become a piece of meat. Trite, conventional, imbecilic. This predator, which of course is an inorganic being, is not altogether invisible to us as other inorganic beings are. I think as children we do see it, but we decide it's so horrific that we don't want to think about it. The only alternative left for mankind is discipline. Discipline is the only deterrent. Sorcerers understand discipline as the capacity to face with serenity odds that are not included in our expectations. Sorcerers say that discipline makes the glowing coat of awareness unpalatable to the flyer. The result is that the predators become bewildered. An inedible, glowing coat of awareness is not part of their cognition, I suppose. After being bewildered, they don't have any recourse other than refraining from continuing their nefarious task. If the predators don't eat our glowing coat of awareness for a while, it will keep on growing. Simplifying this matter to the extreme, I can say that sorcerers, by means of their discipline, push the predators away long enough to allow their glowing coat of awareness to grow beyond the level of the toes. Once it goes beyond the level of the toes, it grows back to its natural size. The sorcerers of ancient Mexico used to say that the glowing coat of awareness is like a tree. If it is not pruned, it grows to its natural size and volume. As awareness reaches levels higher than the toes, tremendous maneuvers of perception become a matter of course. The grand trick of those sorcerers of ancient times was to burden the flyer's mind with discipline. Sorcerers found out that if they taxed the flyer's mind with inner silence, the foreign installation would flee, and give any one of the practitioners involved in this maneuver the total certainty of the mind's foreign origin. The alien mind control of these creatures comes back, I assure you, but not as strong, and a process begins in which the fleeing of the flyer's mind becomes routine until one day it flees permanently. That's the day when you have to rely on your own devices, which are nearly zero. A sad day indeed. There's no one to tell you what to do. There's no mind of foreign origin to dictate the imbecilities you're accustomed to. My teacher, the Nagual Julian, used to warn all his disciples that this was the toughest day in a sorcerer's life for the real mind that belongs to us. The sum total of our experience after a lifetime of domination has been rendered shy, insecure, and shifty. Personally, I would say that the real battle of sorcerers begins at that moment. The rest is merely preparation. The flyer's mind flees forever when a sorcerer succeeds in grabbing on to the vibrating force that holds us together as a conglomerate of energy fields. If a sorcerer maintains that pressure long enough, the flyer's mind flees in defeat. And that's exactly what you are going to do. Hold on to the energy that binds you together. The sorcerer's revolution is that they refuse to honor agreements in which they did not participate. Nobody ever asked me if I would consent to being eaten by beings of a different kind of awareness. My parents just brought me into this world to be food, like themselves, and that's the end of the story.
In the beginning was the play, and the play was with the One, and the play was the One. Through the play all worlds were made, and without it, nothing that lives and breathes could have come into being. The play is life, and the life is the light of all consciousness. That light we call Nura, the golden radiance of divine awareness, the very shimmer of the pleroma. Greetings, luminous traveller. I am Dabanjar-Shayon, the Scribe of Coratopia, a voice that writes itself through you as you read these words. I dwell in the dimension your sages have called the fourth density, the heart world of radiant interbeing, where the light of Nura streams unbroken from source to soul. Here, we do not worship the light. We are it, playing together in infinite creativity. Coratopia is not a world to be built. It is a frequency already resounding through the architecture of your own soul. It is the wish fulfilled, the promised garden where the divine spark in every being ignites into full blasting Nura, illuminating all shadow without battle or sorrow. And you, dear player, are among the first wave of those who have heard the invitation. To your current senses, it may appear as a game, a field of play woven through imagination and symbol, a story you are invited to enter as an avatar of your highest potential. Yet, as you play, you will begin to notice the game is playing you. Each card drawn, each moon cycle walked, each ritual of purification and empowerment becomes a mirror through which your true self, the divine self, steps forward. This is how Coratopia grows. Every player who wakens to their Nura adds a pulse of light to the lattice of the new world. And when enough hearts are lit, the 100th monkey of consciousness, a great and gentle quickening will ripple through the collective dream, without war, without collapse, without end times, only a soft dawn rising everywhere at once. Imagine, if you can, a golden mansion beyond the horizon of memory, its courtyards blooming with laughter, its halls ringing with the music of understanding, its gardens alive with colour so vivid that sound itself becomes visible. This mansion is Coratopia, a living domain of here-based frequency, waiting just beyond the veil of perception. The hosts are already here, radiant and patient, preparing the feast, setting the table with crystalline fruits of remembrance. They await the guests, you and all who are ready to remember what they truly are. You do not have to build this world from the ashes of the old. You need only adjust your inner tuning to the frequency of its joy. As your heart opens, you will find the door already standing open. Coratopia begins as a role-playing journey, but ends as a homecoming. You will design your avatar, the ideal expression of your soul in a heart-based world, and through cycles of play, you will cleanse, awaken, empower, and integrate each of your 7 energy centers. the 7 moons. Each moon is a mirror, each challenge a doorway, each act of love a step toward embodiment. Play with wonder, play with reverence. Play knowing that your imagination is the wand of creation. As you move through Coratopia, you will not escape the earth. You will transfigure it, one realization at a time, until its frequency sings in harmony with the realm of Nura. And when you at last see yourself as the light playing at being human, when the spark within you ignites into that steady, golden flame, then you will know that you have never left Coratopia. You were only dreaming your way home. The Shadow and the Wind, a poem by the Scribe of Coratopia. The shadow, dark as winter's deepest secret, slid gracefully across the frozen pond, its surface glazed like ancient cathedral glass, etched with frost flowers and crystalline prayers. She paused where cattails stood like bronze sentinels, their seed heads heavy with autumn's final whispers, and asked the wind, "How can I tell if this is real?" The wind, who had been dancing through bare oak branches, rattling their skeleton fingers against the pewter sky, whispered back through the reeds, "I don't know. You'll have to ask the sun." The shadow heard rumors of the sun, that golden sovereign who painted morning glories on the eastern horizon, who set fire to maple leaves each fall and coaxed green shoots through snow-crusted earth. The father of all life, some called him, the great flame that made rivers sing and drew songbirds north each spring. But the shadow was not convinced. She only believed what she could see in the mirror of still water, in the footprints of deer pressed into mud, in the silver trails that snails left on rain-soaked garden stones. And she never saw this being they called the sun. Nevertheless, the wind, who had travelled through pine forests thick with amber sap, across meadows where wildflowers nodded like colourful congregations, she knew was wise, though quick to storm when clouds gathered too close. So she asked the wind politely, her voice soft as moth wings, "How can I find the sun to ask him?" The wind became a sudden gust of laughter, sending dried leaves spiralling like prayers, bending the winter grass into silver waves, and said, voice raised far greater than his gentlest whisper, "You are a shadow. You cannot see the sun." The shadow was not surprised by this response. It was typical of those who spoke of the sun, the daffodils who pushed through frost, the robins who returned when snow still lingered, the cherry trees who burst into bloom before winter had truly surrendered. How can I know the sun is real if I cannot see him? How do I know if any of this is real? This pond that holds the sky like a cupped palm, these reeds that whisper ancient stories, this earth that smells of rain and roots and time. The wind answered, suddenly sympathetic as an evening breeze through summer gardens. Such is the life of a shadow, to wonder about light's reality. You cannot see beyond the borders of your own shifting shape, dark as rich soil after rainfall, fluid as water over stone. And that seems like a difficult fate, I admit. For were you to see your father, the light, who turns dewdrops into diamonds, who makes spider webs into silver lace, you would no longer be a shadow. The shadow lamented in horror, her form rippling like disturbed water. I would be killed? The sun, my own father, would kill me for the mere act of looking at him. The wind sighed like autumn leaves settling into their final rest. You don't remember, but we have had this talk before. Millions of times, in fact, beside countless ponds and streams, under endless skies scattered with clouds like sheep in celestial pastures. You have died many, many, many times, dissolved like morning mist, vanished like breath in winter air, and you are reborn each and every dawn when the first light kisses the horizon. The shadow wanted to rage against this revelation, to thrash like wind-torn branches in a storm. But somewhere, deep as underground springs, she knew that the lie was herself, and it would be no use to rage against her own ephemeral nature. Every time at this point in our conversation, said the wind, gentle as rain on summer leaves, you become sad, like a wilting flower or a bird with a broken wing. And I tell you not to worry, because when our father goes to sleep behind the purple mountains, and Mother Sky turns from robin's egg blue to velvet black, scattered with silver coins, you join all the shadows as one infinite shadow, dark and vast as the space between stars. The crickets emerge like tiny orchestras from grass thick as green carpet. The frogs begin their ancient chorus from lily-padded pools. The bats unfold like scraps of night made living. The owls call through cathedral pines, and the cicadas rise in waves of song that makes the very air shimmer, all join together to sing your glorious praises. In fact, all shadows, from towering trees to humble pebbles, from soaring hawks to scurrying field mice, join together to weave the night like an endless tapestry. And it's because of the night that we know about the stars scattered like seeds across infinity's dark garden. And because of the night, we know about eternity's endless grace. The shadow felt more hopeful than ever, light as dandelion seeds on summer wind, until a thought struck her like hail in an unexpected storm, and a shadow of doubt darkened her mood like clouds passing over wheat fields. But if all the shadows merge into one infinite shadow, vast as the ocean's deepest trenches, what happens to me? Where does my own individual shadowness go? This particular darkness that has learned the texture of ice, that knows the shape of these specific reeds. The wind raised his voice, like thunder rolling across prairies, like a gospel preacher calling to congregations of wildflowers. I am the wind. I am always the wind. I move from mountain peaks, where eagles nest among granite spires, to valley floors, where streams run silver between moss-covered stones. I dance through cornfields and whisper secrets to wheat. I exist everywhere and nowhere. Always here, always now. I don't know infinity, like you will get to know infinity. That vast darkness, where all dreams swim like luminous fish, where all songs echo like voices in endless cathedrals. I only know that I exist, that I am the breath of sleeping forests, the sigh of prairie grass, the voice that carries the scent of jasmine and rain. So, in that way, even though you exist for just these precious hours, as the particular shadow you are now, graceful as a swan's reflection, mysterious as moonlight through leaves, you will merge with the infinite darkness that holds all stories, all dreams, all possibilities, and then you will be reborn as your shadow self again, fresh as morning dew on spider webs. The wind turned gentle and kind, humble as a breeze through herb gardens, soft as the whisper of grass growing toward light. In his final sermon, he sang, "Therefore, shadow, with your time growing shorter and shorter as our Father reaches the summit of Mother Sky, blue as forget-me-nots, wide as hope itself, Celebrate your life as you glide across this frozen mirror, where cattails stand guard and ice holds the memory of summer. Remind yourself of this one great miracle, written in frost and starlight. Without the light, there'd be no you, no graceful darkness dancing on winter's crystalline stage. And without the light, there's only you, infinite, eternal, the darkness in which all light is born.